All right, you guys, I'm a little bit nervous to talk in today's episode. I don't know, it's a little bit of a touchy subject, but I felt called to talk to it during my last meditation. So we're going to do it anyway. And I'm just going to start it off by saying this is in no offense to anyone or any religion. I just want you guys to hear me out. This is actually the first time on this podcast where I get deep with you guys about my story. I try to usually just stick it to what I can help you guys with, but I feel like this needs to be said. So I was raised Roman Catholic, like really Catholic. My mom was Puerto Rican. My dad was raised in Spain, like very Roman Catholic. Church every week, no matter what. Midnight mass on Christmas, regardless as to what age you were. Fasting on Fridays, going to school with ash on my forehead on Wednesdays, CCD and youth group and the whole 9 yards. And I was always taught that if I followed the rules, God would always have my back. That was kind of like the baseline of the religion. And okay, I was down with it. But there's really no bigger heartbreak than when life happens and you just lose your trust in the one thing that you thought you'd always have to trust in. And I couldn't figure out if I had done something wrong or if I just didn't do enough good to keep God's attention or, I don't know, do enough bad to concern him. But at a certain point, I just kind of felt transparent to him. I kind of felt like God forgot me.
Welcome to Sips and Giggles. I'm here to offer all of my lack of filter, real deal BFF services. I'm talking from life crisis like, oh my God, I think I need to quit my job, to much less extreme examples like, oh my God, what should I eat? You can call your friends for the fluff and the distractions, that's fine. But I am here to deal with 3 a.m., heart-to-heart, no tolerance for the bullshit level conversation. So pour it up, whatever gets you going. It could be $7 boxed wine, coffee blacker than your soul, or for me, pre-workout, because for whatever reason, it makes me all preachy and chatty and in touch with myself. But get a good glass full because you are in for a ride.
Okay, so let me start this off by saying I was never really diehard religious. I mean, I slept through religion classes like all the time and skipped the readings in church to see what songs we'd be singing because that's what excited me. But my belief was in my soul, and my soul was connected to God. I didn't lean on the importance of Lent or the fear of my sexuality leading me to hell, but I knew there was something great. Something that would always take care of me and my family and keep us safe and provide us with happiness and grand opportunities in return for just treating others well and having good intentions with everything that we did with this life that it gave to us. And then the summer before my senior year came and fucked that all up. I struggled with depression, as all of you know, for a good chunk of my preteen and teen years. And on September 20th, 2013, my mom and I got into a fight. You see, I was 17. I was newly licensed, newly given a car. So, needless to say, I was pretty much never home. I was always out with friends or honestly just looking for any reason to be out of the house. I would spend extra time at dance practice, pick up extra shifts at work. And my mom was always asking me to come home more. Come home for family dinner, come home to just hang out. She never saw me anymore. I mean, it got to the point where there were tears. It got to the point where there was begging. And I was honest with her. I told her that home made me depressed. Home made me so depressed because all we did was fight each other. And yes, I know, mother-daughter, 17 years old, that's what you would expect, but I felt like I just didn't have any control over myself. Like I couldn't stop no matter how bad I wanted. I felt really overwhelmed and stuffed, and honestly the lack of control and the extreme like yelling and screaming and crying that we did, it made me feel evil. So on the night of September 20th, we had the same fight that we always do, and again I repeated and told her about my depression and how being home affected me. And, you know, now thinking back to it, I'm sure she probably just thought that was more of an excuse than my actual explanation. I mean, we had this conversation a lot, and her response was good. She told me that escaping family wasn't the answer to my problems, But we continued to fight and fight and fight. And then my dad heard, and he came into the room. Now, I tried to keep this information secret from my dad, on a need-to-know basis at the very least, because I was ashamed and I didn't want him to see me differently. And that night, she took him outside and told him everything I had told her. So, of course, being a 17-year-old, my response was to give her the silent treatment. I felt betrayed, like so disappointed. I thought the level of trust that we had was beyond that. And it made me feel uncomfortable because it was something that I didn't want to burden my father with, that I felt bad even burdening her with, but she felt like it was her right to share that. And I disagreed. So that night, I, without saying anything else, went downstairs into my room, never came back up. And the next morning, I woke up for school and got ready as usual. And, it was pretty normal that we would fight through the night. But every morning, I always said goodbye before leaving for school, gave her a hug or, told her I loved her because she was already 5 o'clock up in the morning working at her desk. But I was still feeling this thing really hard that next morning, and I was feeling really prideful. So I left. No hug, no I love you, nothing. And I picked up my friend Daphne on my way to school, and Daphne was that goofy friend. No matter how early in the morning it was, no matter how much of a shitty day we were about to have at school, she was that friend that was super goofy. She always had fuzzy blankets that she brought into my car. She was the girl who would shave her legs in the front seat of my car. She was that girl. I love her to pieces. She's still my very best friend to this day. Had Daphne in the passenger seat of my car, and between her and just being out of the house and blasting good music, I was good. And after 2 minutes of picking up Daphne, I was fine and had completely forgotten about the problems that we had. And then my younger brother called, and I was a little confused by it because it was still pretty early for him to be doing anything. And I thought, okay, well, what could I have possibly left at home? What did I forget to bring with me? But then at the same time, wouldn't mom call me if I forgot something? But I figured, okay, I'm giving her the silent treatment. She's probably just giving me the silent treatment and making one of them call for her. And I swear to you guys, I wish I never answered that phone call, because I picked up the phone to hear my little brother screaming and crying, and I couldn't understand a word that was coming out of his mouth, and I was so scared. And I could hear screaming and crying behind him, and then I heard my dad scream, and I realized something happened. I really had to make it home. So I did the most illegal U-turn there ever was, and zapped my way back home, and I could remember feeling like I needed to just be there. I needed to be there already. And then seeing an ambulance pull up in front of me and take off in front of me and take the turn onto my road. And I thought, oh my God, they're going to my house. By the time I got there, it wasn't just that one ambulance there. There was a whole mass of people in front of my house, including my siblings, including my dad, but not my mom. You see, my mom went to go take a shower, and she had an aneurysm in her brainstem that burst. And my dad, being the hero that he is, saved her, brought her back from life, so that when the ambulance did arrive, when the EMT did arrive, they had something to work with. That poor dad had to bring her back in his arms, the woman that he loved, to bring her back. My poor siblings, so young, had to hear their mother cry out, rush into the bathroom to find her on the ground. All I could think, watching the ambulance go away, all I could think on my way rushing to the hospital right behind the ambulance is, I didn't say I love you. I didn't say goodbye because I was upset because she was trying to find me more help for something that I needed help for. My mother was in a coma for 11 days. And for those 11 days, everyone in our family came At first, to give us prayers and hope, but as days went by, they came to say goodbye. And then eventually it was my turn to say goodbye too. And all I could think at that very moment was how could a loving God take a mother from her 5 children, from her loving husband, from the community that she single-handedly kept running for years? How could he hear that I felt hopelessness and consider taking my life, a life that I didn't understand, and in response, take hers? And that was the first moment that I realized, oh, maybe I had this God thing all wrong. A few months later, I got into a string of car accidents. You see, that new car that I had gotten at 17 years old, that new leased car, had a lot of issues. It would randomly decelerate out of nowhere, and I could put my pedal to the metal, and it was the one who decided when we would start speeding up again, not me. And I know it sounds like a silly issue, but it's not a silly issue when you're going 70 miles per hour on a highway, jamming out to music, and everyone behind you is going just about the same speed, and then your car decides, nope, we're gonna do 35 miles per hour. Let's see if the cars behind you are paying attention enough to swerve around you. And my dad and I had taken the car back to where we leased it from multiple times and explained it to them, and explained that it wasn't something that we could make happen. It would just happen randomly, and no one believed us. And then one day, I was in the car with my sister, and we were just driving on the parkway near us, getting ready to go back home. My car decided to decelerate, and the car behind me decided not to, and hit us. And I can't even, put into words the shock and fear that I had in my heart. Not even for me or for my car, but for my sister, because now this was a life that I felt like I needed to protect. So I felt like I couldn't trust myself with kids in the car anymore. Then late February came, and I had skipped school. Probably shouldn't have that day. To say that I regret it, the smallest form you could possibly put my feelings in. But it was snowing, and guess what? I got hit again. T-boned my car, sent me sliding through my body, and drove away. And at 18 years old, I was so scared, so confused about what I had done to deserve so much in such little time. This car accident had really messed up my back and put me in so much pain, so much pain. But here's the thing, the treatment required such a recovery time. I'm talking minimum 6-month recovery time. And at that time, I was still dancing. I wasn't willing to give dance up for that long. Dance had been the one thing that held me together, that allowed for me to just let things out, that gave me some space to just feel things and then never feel those feelings again. I couldn't part with it, even if it meant that if I messed up one time, I would be paralyzed. I was willing to risk it. But guys, the thing is that pain was so unbearable, and the winter didn't make it much better. And I would go to see a masseuse or go to see if maybe a chiropractor would help me out, and nobody would touch me because they knew that I needed more than what they could do. But I knew that I wasn't willing to go get it because I was afraid of giving up that one thing. These accidents left me with such intense driving anxiety. I still, to this day, I can't drive in precipitation. It's raining, it's snowing. I can't, because all I could think about is that accident. Now, my anxiety has gotten to the point where I'm afraid of driving late because it's dark and I feel like I'm not going to be able to see everything and everyone. And I pull over and I cry. Now, mind you, I live an hour and a half away from my best friends and my family. Driving is not something that I can exactly give up lightly, so I do it. My first drive back home when I moved out to Pennsylvania, guys, I live an hour and a half away. It took me 3 hours. I would never tell my dad because I didn't want him to worry and I didn't want him to take away my car. 3 hours because I cried a lot and I rode in the right lane the whole time. And guys, even when I'm a passenger in a car, that fear and anxiety takes me over. No matter how much I trust the person who is driving, I can still see our car swerving off the road, flipping over, hitting a median, running into the person in front of us. I see these things and I fear them, and they take me over. How could a loving God create more pain in my life? Take away the one thing I had that helped me with my grief and depression. Make it hard for me to travel, to go to school, to eventually go back from school and see my family, my grieving family, the family that I love, the only people that I felt like I could connect with. But I kept going. You see, when I got to college, nothing had gotten better. Actually, it had gotten a lot worse. My freshman year, I was sexually assaulted. I can still remember exactly what happened and exactly how I felt and what it felt like. I could still feel the way it felt when my trust was smashed to pieces. And as soon as it happened, I walked outside the building. I sat in a corner and, cried. I called my best friend on campus. Honestly, I didn't want to tell him what happened. I was just so paralyzed from fear and awe that I couldn't walk back to my dorm room. And I was afraid that if I sat outside in Philly, just a little too late, I would invite more trouble into my life. Guys, this made me afraid of life at university. So afraid of everything that was supposed to be good about my college experience. I couldn't create relationships with classmates anymore. I felt fear anytime I had to go out without that one friend. And all I could think was, how could this God, who's supposed to keep me safe, let me enter the situation and take away all of my power as soon as that man got a grasp of my wrist? I struggled a lot my first year of college. And eventually, with all the fear and all the anxiety, with all the people, I decided to move into my own apartment. A little studio on the 11th floor of a beautiful, beautiful luxury apartment building. The day I moved into my very own apartment was supposed to be the best and most independent and freeing moment of my life. I thought it was going to be a page turner for me. I thought this was going to be me having some say in what would go down in the next few years. And that day that I moved in, my boyfriend and I split up. And the next few months we tried so hard to repair our relationship, as I also tried so hard to repair my mental health, support my family, keep up my grades, find who I was, fight my back pain. And one day it became way too much, and I gave up. Gave up on all of it, and I climbed my little body into the big, beautiful window of my 11th floor studio apartment. And I sat in that windowsill with my legs dangling and looked down. I can remember thinking, the grass down there looks so soft. The air out here feels so nice. I wanted to jump so bad. And I sat up there and I cried. I cried hard because I wanted this to end so badly. But I didn't want to repeat the pain that my family felt, making them lose another person that they loved. So I fought myself with everything that I had to just get back onto the other side of that windowsill. And I remember back against the wall, sliding down the wall, sitting down, crying hysterically, realizing what had just happened, realizing what I was feeling, and calling up that ex-boyfriend of mine who I was trying to repair things with, who I had been with for so many years. I remember telling him what had happened. I remember him asking me if I was safe and if I was okay. I remember saying yes, because, I was safe, right? I was sitting on the ground again. And then I remember him telling me, okay, well, I stepped out of a meeting for this. So if you're good, I'm just going to head back in. I'll talk to you later. And hanging up the phone. That person who I thought cared for me so much spent less than 2 minutes on the phone with me in a moment where I was just previously considering having no time left in my life. I could just think, did God forget to watch over me? And then remember last minute, did God decide that since he and I were no longer together, that my biggest supporter no longer needed to care? Did he decide that my trust issues weren't big enough? Or that I needed this extra layer of baggage in my future relationships? It took me forever. But all of this broken trust with my God turned into a need to create and control my life. My need for control became obsessive and really hard to break, hard to be flexible with, hard to help other people understand. It took a lot of reflection, you guys, to finally admit that I needed to get my act together, that I couldn't wait for God to do it for me. And so I turned to things. I turned to meditation, I turned to music, I turned to people, but I turned to reflection in myself and finding power in myself, because in each one of these scenarios where I felt powerless because I realized I was giving all the power to something, someone that I didn't know. I was told to believe. I was told to know that he would always be there. But I just kind of gave it all away, guys. So I'm here now, after years of putting myself back together. We're here now. Myself and my God and the universe. Because I learned something. I learned that I could trust God. I learned that he loved me. The universe loves me. My angels love me. I learned that what's wanted for me, what's intended for me, is safety and challenge and passion and love. But I also learned that it wasn't something that I was supposed to just give away to this ever powerful being. It wasn't something that I was supposed to just put both my hands up and trust that it was all going to work out in the end. Guys, it took me forever, but I learned this one thing that changed everything. This one thing that made me realize that maybe God didn't forget me. I learned that I'm a co-creator. That yes, there are some things that I just cannot control in my life, but a measurable amount of things. And with that, there are equal parts, things that I can control and create and thrive in for myself. So yeah, it was God's choice to take my mother, but it was my power, my decision to figure out what to do afterwards, to be resilient. And yeah, I have some pretty fucked up anxiety when it comes to driving, but it's within myself to push my boundaries, to believe in myself, to feel safe, to realize that my love for the things and the people on the other side of that path, of that travel, is so much more than my fear of those roads. I realized that although I had no power when I was sexually assaulted, I do, however, have the power to help so many people through that, because I can speak with them. Not to them or at them about their experience, but with them. And I am a living proof that you can survive. It was out of my power when the people that I thought were there for me had a lapse in judgment and didn't support me the way they should have. But it's within me to support me. It's my job to remind myself how much my life is worth. And it's my job to create that worth in my life and make it something to live for. And if there's anything you guys get from listening to this episode, please just remember, no matter what or who you believe in, don't give your all away to them. Don't be submissive to them. I'm not saying fight them. I'm saying join them, because you are the co-creator in this life.